We start JJK Chapter 242, Idiot Survivors Soar Ever Higher, with Kenjaku taking this Takaba fight seriously. He summoned a new special grade cursed spirit, the Pinnacle of Akuro-O, ready to take down the comedian. Just look at this huge thing. It's gonna be devastating, right? Nah. 1 second later, the curse is immediately flattened out by an out-of-control truck that comes speeding out of nowhere. Kenjaku only barely manages to jump away himself. His new curse is reduced to just some bloody limbs flying through the air. Kenjaku has fallen to the ground by the time the truck stops. Takaba, the driver, tries to be sympathetic. Still, he says the two jumped out in front of him. Kenjaku isn't taking that though. Takaba just ran them over. So now Kenjaku's a cop, and there are more policemen with him. Kenjaku and his cop buddies have pulled over a very drunk-looking Takaba out of his truck and are now going to run a breathalyzer test on him. Very normal stuff. But instead of a real breathalyzer, Kenjaku pulls out a goldfish in a bag of water with a straw. Kenjaku claims that if the goldfish dies after Takaba breathes into the bag, he'll arrest the comedian. But the goldfish is already dying before Takaba's even breathed in the bag. And that distracts the two men. So now Takaba and Kenjaku are doctors, putting these suddenly way bigger goldfish on an emergency cart and rushing it into the hospital, desperately trying to save it. Comedian is insane with just how much it can rewrite. This is more like a domain expansion than a curse technique. Takaba tries to read the goldfish's heartbeat. He can't find it, but that might be because he stuck his stethoscope on its eye. He gives the fish a coma score of Final Fantasy X2. Damn, was the game really that bad? Kenjaku's not down with the Square Enix reference, however, he's more of a Nintendo fan. So he goes to the defibrillator, the closest thing he has to a Pikachu, and zaps Takaba with it. Takaba runs with the reference, yelling that he's blasting off again like Team Rocket. Unfortunately, hitting Takaba with the defibrillator didn't save their Magikarp. The little guy flatlines, probably because these two idiots took it out of the water. Kenjaku bends over the bed like he's on a medical drama, traumatized at the loss of this goldfish. Takaba stands over him, gloomily noting that modern medicine wasn't enough for this. Anyway, Dr. Takaba, still depressed, does the most logical thing. He asks Kenjaku to get a bunch of nurses who are madly in love with him to help cheer him up. This just turned into a very different medical drama, and Kenjaku turns into a nurse. But even still, he, or I guess she, isn't exactly down with this fan service scene for Takaba. Instead, the ancient zombie sorcerer nurse just writes the goldfish's fate down on her board. Furious at his enemy for not wanting to gather a harem of nurses for him, Takaba starts trying to whip Kenjaku with his stethoscope. He's depressed, and that means he needs fan service. Kenjaku manages to do this sachet dodge, twirling around and parrying with a clipboard. No means no. Takaba screams at Kenjaku for not wanting to offer comfort for his trauma. He's coming off way more bratty and angry than depressed though, and Kenny calls him out on that. They need to find a way to settle this. The pair go for rock, paper, scissors, the only fair way they can think of. If Takaba wins, Kenjaku will call in the nurse harem. If Kenjaku wins, he'll get the nurses to start making pop rocks. The two start spinning their hands, chanting rock, paper, and scissors. Music starts playing, hyping the moment up. The two twirl into a fake out, neither making a sign, before getting back into the chant again. They both glare at each other, ready for this epic showdown. And just lunge at each other. I guess Takaba won with scissors to the nose, stopping a paper slap. Kenjaku jumps back, remembering that this is a fight. His nose is actually bleeding from that strike. Even though it was a comedic moment, he got hurt by the attack. Takaba's curse technique is more than he ever expected. It's forcing him to play along somewhat. Kenjaku's mind has to respond to whatever scenario Takaba comes up with. There's a kind of resonance between them when comedian is active, but that's also how he's had some control over the jokes himself. This whole thing has become a back and forth, with both Kenjaku and Takaba able to do whatever they want, so long as they think it's funny. But so far, only Kenjaku's taken any damage from this. But before he can do more with that information, these two are going on a game show. They've got booths and a host with cue cards. They're also back in the wilderness area where they started this fight. So it looks like comedian just makes as much stuff real as it needs to for the gag to land. Before they start the show, Takaba tells Kenjaku that he's not going to get questions wrong on purpose, which wouldn't be funny. Kenjaku agrees to do the same, noting with a vicious grin that he hates idiots acting like idiots. The first question is history. Who came up with the phrase, "It might be interesting, it might not"? Who can say? Kenjaku buzzes in immediately, sure of his answer. He says Takasugi Shinsaku. But no, the quizmaster claims that that is wrong. Kenjaku's eyes go wide. Was he wrong? Takaba laughs at the mistake. He even rubs some salt in, bringing up how they agreed not to get questions wrong on purpose. The next question is science-based. What is the elemental particle held together by a strong interaction? Takaba doesn't have a clue. Kenjaku buzzes in with Hadron, getting frustrated. Takaba yells that he buzzed too early, but Kenjaku sticks out his tongue, mocking him for not having the answer. Kenjaku makes fun of the comedian's eyesight. Takaba's frustrated, cursing Yoshiharu Suge, the guy who made a famous manga strip about Tokyo being full of eye doctors. For the second question, they have to answer which of the two is harder to speak to others about, writing your own university recommendation letter, or being formally endorsed by a university. Both Kenjaku and Takaba act like they know this one, sprinting across the set. Even the host is surprised at how confident these two are. But before either of them reach the answer, Takaba hears someone calling. He looks around, shocked at what he sees. There's an adorable black cat on the crosswalk heading over the road. But once it gets halfway across, the stoplight changes. It is about to get run over. With only a few seconds to intervene, Takaba dives in front of the oncoming taxi, desperate to save the poor innocent kitty. But it wasn't actually a cat. It's our master villain Kenjaku pretending to be one. Kenjaku uses the shock of his appearance to sneak attack Takaba, knocking him into the oncoming car. But all it managed to do was give him a nosebleed. And before Kenjaku could follow up with a stronger move, he sees something shocking. Now Takaba is a cat and he's drowning. The villain desperately runs out onto the water to try and save the poor innocent cat. But behind him is Takaba on a jet ski. Then Takaba proceeds to hit him with the jet ski. But it's not much more than a splash. Kenjaku laughs, not seeming to mind at all. The two men just start splashing around in the ocean together as the sun sets, like they're kids relaxing at the beach after a long day. Kenjaku thinks to himself how much fun he's having. It's been hundreds of years since he felt this good. His heart is fluttering. All of the culling game stuff was worth it for just this moment. But just then, Kenjaku is suddenly furious and tries to drown Takaba. Takaba is struggling to breathe, but then he realizes something. He breaks free and stands up, telling Kenjaku to try drinking the ocean. Surprised, Kenjaku takes a sip and discovers what Takaba found out. Turns out the ocean is made of Fanta. Kenjaku's back to smiling and laughing along with Takaba, splashing around with him. Side note, I don't really care for soda much, but they've got some amazing Fanta flavors in Japan that are definitely worth a try. Inwardly, the ancient sorcerer is far more pessimistic. He's losing this fight. Every weird thing that happens between them means nothing to Takaba. He's immune to all of it thanks to his technique. But Kenjaku is taking damage from this stuff. Comedian doesn't care what happens to him. The old sorcerer is losing his own will to continue fighting. He can't win this with brute strength. Even attacks that play into Takaba's sense of humor aren't doing anything. He has to satisfy Takaba's desire for comedy somehow. And he's got an idea that might just be enough. With a thought, Kenjaku has traded out his robes for a sharp-looking suit. Takaba's bewildered, even though he's in the same outfit. Kenjaku makes sure that the other comedian is warmed up before inviting him to go forward. As his partner, both men stepped out onto a performance stage together. They're in front of a massive crowd. All lights are on them. Takaba and Kenjaku are about to become a true comedy duo, which is exactly what Takaba has always wanted. This might just be one of the weirdest manga chapters we have ever covered on this channel, so I hope you guys enjoyed the madness. As always, I'm Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.